It's roundtable time again on the podcast, so stay tuned. MetsMusings is an unofficial, independent podcast covering New York's National League Baseball team. It is not affiliated in any way with Major League Baseball or the New York Mets.
This is Len and Jeff from Baseball and Barbecue.
And the one place to go for New York Mets news,
Past week game reviews,
upcoming series previews,
interviews,
analysis,
opinion, and what's going down on the farm. It's Mets Musings with Gary Mack. So keep the faith, stay optimistic, and let's go Mets.
Mets Musings with
Gary Mack.
Now it's time for some New York Mets baseball talk. Here's Gary Mack bringing you the latest news and analysis from Mets Nation and the world of baseball on another edition of Mets Musings.
Mets Musings. I hope you all had a great week. It's roundtable time again here at Mets Musings on this edition of the podcast, and we have the usual suspects lined up and ready to go. We've got my former co-host, Mr. Barry Newman. Barry, how are you this evening?
I'm good, Gary. How are you? And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. And also joining us is those boys from Baseball and Barbecue. You love them. You want to take them home to your mother, Jeff and Len.
Hey, Gary. Hey, Barry. How you doing?
Good, guys. Happy New Year to you guys, too.
Thank you. Happy New Year. Let's go meet your mother. Let's go meet the mothers.
He cooks a nice brisket.
Yes, he does. Yes.
Nice and lean.
Well, guys, we actually have some news. We have some breaking news. Len Aberman is reporting tonight that Mr. Met is having an affair on Mrs. Met, and it's supposedly this video. More to come.
Whoa.
That's how you get the listeners, Gary. You send out, you put out some kind of, vicious rumor, and then you'll see. Everybody will just, no, I can't believe it.
But is it with Noah Syndergaard?
Oh, Noah Syndergaard, right?
And if I may weigh in, if Mr. Met is having an affair on Mrs. Met, wouldn't that make it a threesome?
Whoa!
That'll knock the Houston Astros cheating scandal right off the back page.
Well, there was a story some years ago that a number of other mascots, were cavorting with Mrs. Met, so maybe this is a retaliation on that.
Yeah, like the Philly Fanatic.
Yeah.
Right?
And Slugger and...
I had my sights on Mrs. Met for a while. But...
and Quacker, the Long Island... Oh, wait, I did not know that, Jeff. Did not know that. Okay.
All right, well, let's get serious.
All right, let's do it.
The Mets named a manager, and he is the second Latin manager named by the New York Mets, because they are going to count Carlos Beltran as a manager. He'll go into record books with a 0-0 record.
Really? Are they really? That's really what they're doing?
Yeah, that's what I read. That he is going to be there was a big question. Was he the 22nd or 23rd manager? And they say the 23rd manager because Carlos Beltran was the 22nd, and therefore that would make him the second Latin American manager of the New York Mets. So Luis Rojas named as the manager of the Mets, and I guess my first question out there is he wasn't ready in November, but he's ready now. Any thoughts on this choice?
Who wants to go first? Because I got a lot of thoughts here.
All right, I'm going to go first. But I wanted to go back to, if Beltran goes in the Hall of Fame, if he gets in the Hall of Fame, are they going to put on his plaque one-time manager of the Mets?
Well,
if,
by the time he gets in the Hall of Fame, he may be the manager of the Mets. Who knows?
I will chime in. They had probably in this situation they had no choice because they needed somebody who was familiar with the players. I actually think Luis Rojas is probably a better choice than Beltran was because at least he's been managing in the minor leagues. He has experience. So I didn't love the choice of Beltran. I don't love this choice, but I love this choice more. I want to say one more thing before you guys all chime in. The Mets are a team that's built for now, right? If you have a horse, if you have a racehorse, and you think this racehorse is going to win you the Triple Crown or, one of the major races, or you have a race car, and that race car is prime, it's primo, it's got everything great about it, are you going to then get some driver or jockey who's never raced, who's never ridden a horse, and put them in charge? If the Mets think that this team is ready to win it all, they're just going to take someone who, and especially with Beltran, who never managed and put them in charge. To me, that's almost the equivalent. But again, didn't like Beltran as the manager. Rojas a little better, but you guys take it away.
Jeff?
Okay. Sit back. It's going to be a long one. So, Luis Rojas is my choice. Would have been Buck Showalter, and I have several reasons for that. Showalter, he even though he never won a World Series, he wins. He took but the year after he leaves the team goes to the World Series. Happened in '95 with the Yankees. He left. Yankees win series in '96. He went to Arizona, left in 2000, 2001, Diamondbacks are the World Series champion. He went to Texas in 2000. He left in 2009, 2010. They're in the World Series. So I figure if Buck was the manager, the year after he leaves, Mets are in the World Series. But he took the same path as Buck Showalter. He managed in the minors. He knows the system well. He promoted as major league manager around the same age. So that's all positive. But let's say Showalter did not start his managing career in the age of Twitter and Facebook and social media. That's pretty daunting. But my question is, will he be the manager or will he be the puppet of the front office analyst team and Brodie Van Wagenen? Will he be told, for example, if Max is at 67 pitches facing a right-handed batter with a runner on second, he must be removed from the game? Is he going to be that type of manager taking orders from the front office? Who knows? But he does have a baseball pedigree. His dad is Felipe Alou, a pretty good manager. Not terrible for Rojas to pick up the phone or text his dad in between innings advice. What would you do in this situation? Kind of like a second bench coach, if you will. But like I said, my choice would have been Buck Showalter. Barry?
Okay, I guess I'm going to address a little bit of both Jeff and Len's comments. And Jeff, you kind of answered your own question. And Len, to answer your question, the answer is really the same to both. Brodie Van Wagenen was never going to hire an experienced guy because he wants someone he can control. And I would have been fine with Showalter. Of course, I wanted Joe Girardi, as a lot of Mets fans, not including one, but this was just never going to happen. And I don't think Showalter or Dusty Baker or Clint Hurdle or John Gibbons or any other successful, experienced manager's name ever got linked to the Mets. So what we're left with is an inexperienced manager who he can control. And given the choices with such little time between now and spring training, Luis Rojas probably is the choice that makes the most sense. He knows the players. He has extensive experience managing in the Mets farm system. So this is what we're stuck with. These are extraordinary, extenuating circumstances and the Mets were kind of left with a very little choice. I guess it really came down to Rojas versus Hensley Mullen, and to me, that's just a coin flip. Neither one would be an exciting choice. You're talking about either a manager only on the minor league level versus an experienced major league bench coach for 2 or 3 world championship teams. So given that choice, Rojas probably is the one that is, I guess you'd have to say he's the least bad choice.
Oh, Barry, I will say that he's been in the organization 14 years. So since he was 24 years old, and has done everything asked him for the organization. And he grew up, around his dad in Montreal, around Pedro and those guys, and out to San Francisco. So he knows the game. That's definitely a plus in his favor.
Yeah, let me say he's the safest choice. That's kind of what I meant to say before, but I couldn't quite get the words out because he has this extensive managing experience, and he's managed a lot of plays that currently are on the Mets Major League roster.
Well, I would agree with you guys that he was the logical choice, given the fact that he was in the organization and given the fact that the circumstances. However, I'm not thrilled with the choice. It's a yawn as far as I'm concerned. I thought Beltran brought a certain cachet, even though he didn't have the experience. He brought a certain cachet to this team, gave them some excitement, gave the fan base some excitement, and now that's lost. And this guy was not even he was the top 4th pick. I know they were high on him, but they didn't think he was ready. Everybody said that Eduardo Perez was the second choice. Derek Shelton was up there, and then Rojas. So we're going to the 4th choice for the team, but the most logical because he does know the personnel already. Again, I don't know what made him ready now that he wasn't ready in November, that they couldn't have named him in November. But as far as Beltran goes, if I was the owner of the Mets, I would have stuck with him. I would have tried to work him through. I would have had him go to the press and clear this up or whatever, and let him say what involvement he had before the season started. I don't like Rob Manfred, so I'm seeing conspiracy all over this. I believe that it was a setup to get him fired because Manfred mentioned Beltran as the only player in that report. The report says a group of players, including Carlos Beltran. Why did Beltran's name come out? Why didn't it say, Carlos Beltran, Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman? It didn't say any of that. It just said Carlos Beltran. And to my mind, it was a setup. And the Mets had no choice, I guess, to make this move. But I'm not excited about Luis Rojas, but we'll see how he does. My question is, who's the next manager next year when he fails and the general manager goes, or in a couple of years when Cohen gets here? Let's take a break and come back with the answer to that question right after this.
Hi, I'm Ron Swoboda of the 69 New York Mets, and you're listening to Mets Musings with Gary Mack.
Gary, why do you think Manfred has it out for Beltran and the Mets?
I don't know if he's necessarily got it out for Beltran and not the Mets, but I think he had it out for Beltran because he couldn't. If Beltran had something to do with this on whatever level, they only said something about he wanted a bigger monitor near the dugout or something. If that's what he's taking, and he said he wasn't going to suspend any players, so he couldn't suspend Beltran. He could suspend Cora, which he has not, interestingly enough, because Cora was fired. Now, if Cora doesn't get suspended, that's going to tell you something. because he lost his job. So Manfred wanted him out as well.
Well, I agree with you, Gary. I think Manfred, since he couldn't suspend any players because he didn't want to take on the players' union, but Beltran not part of the union anymore, and he couldn't suspend him because it wouldn't be fair to the other players, so he had the Mets do his dirty work.
Exactly, and that's why the name comes out in the report. They knew him being in New York, especially, the press is going to salivate over this, and the pressure was going to be immense. But I would have tried to clear it up before spring training. I would have done some, let's face it, the Mets do not have the best public relations department in the world. I mean, they're pretty horrible, really. I mean, they don't know how to clean up messes. They just know how to create messes, and even with this Fan Fest thing, I mean, they've got tons of examples, and this is what they chose to do, 2-hour segments. It's crazy. But anyways, that's another story. To me...
Well, Gary, let me just say that what the Mets should have done, first of all, they caved. They shouldn't have caved.
Right.
What they should have done is hold one press conference, take all the questions in spring training or whenever they held it, be it 2 hours, 3 hours, get it over with. Beltran answer all the questions, and that's it. And say, I'm not talking about it anymore. But they caved. And
exactly.
That's that.
Okay, let me weigh in on this a little bit because I'm not going to dismiss the possibility that there is or there was a conspiracy by the commissioner, who I have no love for either, to get Beltran out of there. But what I do remember, back as far as 2017 when these rumors started, is that Beltran, along with a core, were the ringleaders in this and basically maybe even orchestrated this whole thing. And I also remember at the time that watching the playoffs against the Yankees, and I had no problem with it at the time because I was rooting for the Astros to beat the Yankees. I remember the whistling during all the home playoff games the Astros played, but didn't think to connect any of this. And why would anyone else connecting it to whistling or garbage cans being banged only on off-speed pitches when Houston was batting? But the other thing, and the argument for letting Beltran go, I think, and again, it has a lot to do with what Gary mentioned about the Mets public relations department. Had the Mets, well, now it's not going to happen, but if the Mets had retained Beltran, gone on the road this season, this would have hounded them at every stop they made. And when you get into August and September, playing teams, we only make one visit to those cities, it could really have had an effect on their season when hopefully they would be making a push for the playoffs. And the Mets do have several games against teams in August and September where they're visiting those cities for the one and only time. And one other thing, I'm surprised at the backlash against the Beltran firing when he has no managing experience, when the man they did end up hiring, Luis Rojas, has extensive managing experience in the Mets farm system. And given the choices, the only issue I have with Rojas is maybe he might just be a little too young, and it would have been better for him to be, and I think this might have been the plan anyway, to groom him for the manager's role at some point later on.
Well, it's a good point, but I they should have showed the guts and done it anyway and stuck by their player, because it doesn't look good. It doesn't look, it's not like. Then if he's got that bigger part to play, then tell us that. Then where is it in the report? Tell us what exactly, he did. You're making an accusation against the guy, but you're not giving us any proof. I mean, that's not like saying he was a mass murderer, but we don't have any bodies. I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And it should, Manfred needs to be called on these things, but nobody seems to be touching this guy. I mean, he single-handedly, he's taken down this game. with his stupid ideas, with these runners on second base in extra inning games, and now robot umpires, and there's two things taking down this game right now, and that is one is analytics, and the other is MLB itself. It's just they're killing the goose that laid the golden egg, and they're not even realizing it.
Yeah, and Manfred's terrible.
Listen, I don't think the Mets. Let's forget about Manfred, okay, and conspiracy theorists and all that stuff.
But that's
the
fun.
Mets, they didn't need the distraction, so I don't. And they probably realized that. How much do they want to stand by their choice? Maybe they didn't. After a while, they were like, "Is it really worth it?" I don't know that Rojas may be a better manager, so they didn't need the distraction.
Well, maybe
they nipped it in the bud. So
maybe it's time that they get like the '86 Mets and just tell the press go F off and do whatever they want to do, and show some backbone, because everybody's trying to be politically correct, and it makes them look like idiots. All right, and going along with this, speaking of idiots, let's talk about the front office. There was a report out that said there was a lot of paralysis before they hired Rojas, because they didn't really know what to do, because everybody's afraid of keeping their jobs when Steve Cohen gets in. Any thoughts on that at all?
Well, Brody Van Wagenen is, you know what? I know there's a lot of controversy around him. He came in as an agent. We all heard the stories. We know the bad trades from last year. We all get all that. I want to say this, though. This is the second year. This is his first managerial hire. Well, now it's second managerial hiring, but you know what I mean. I'm still in the position that the jury's still out on him. I mean, the best GM the Mets ever had was, I would say, Frank Cashen. I think we would all agree with that.
Man.
You know what Frank Cashen was before he was GM? A newspaper writer. He was a newspaper writer, and then he worked for a racetrack in public relations, and then got to the Orioles as a GM. So, it's not unheard of that some guy comes outside the organization and becomes GM. So, I think the jury's still out on Brody. Having said that, this whole analytical department is just ridiculous, and you're right. There's too many chefs in the kitchen. What's Omar thinking? What is Jeffy thinking? They can't decide. Someone's got to take the reins. It's the GM's job saying, this is what I appreciate all your input. This is what we're going to do. And if you don't like it, then tough.
Yep. And what scares me about Rojas is he was the delivery boy of the data from the front office to the dugout. So, is that what his job's going to be? He's just going to pick up the data and deliver it to himself in the dugout now? I don't know. I don't know. Barry, any thoughts?
I want to kind of read the first two paragraphs from an article that Mike Vaccaro wrote in last Friday's Post. And here goes. Brody Van Wagenen did a fascinating thing Thursday afternoon. During a conference call that was supposed to explain why he and the owners of the Mets decided to fire the manager, the most eloquent and compelling testimony he offered instead was why, for the sake of the franchise, Steve Cohen has to arrive as soon as possible to eradicate the Mets of the reckless likes of the sitting general manager.
Yeah? Come on, Uncle Steven.
You know what, guys? I think that the Mets, they're getting a little too much grief. First of all, there's three teams that don't have a manager right now that need one. The Mets made the first choice. The Mets, it took them a week. They got a manager, and the Red Sox still don't have a manager. The Astros still don't have a manager or a GM. They made a decision. It was pretty quick. I don't know. I think we may be reading too much into it.
They had to make a choice because they got FanFest this weekend, and they did not want to go in that without a manager.
But guys, how can Brody not even? Well, let's say not even. He was so eager to tell us ad nauseum how extensive their vetting process on all these candidates was, and then say that they never discussed the sign stealing scandal with Beltran until about a week and a half ago. And it's funny that Len mentioned the Red Sox because I believe they have hired, and I'm not sure what role he's in, and I can't pronounce his first name, but you know the guy I mean, the guy with the funny first name, Heimblom. Is that
yeah?
Yeah, that's close enough. Yep.
Now is he the Red Sox general manager now, or is he an assistant?
No, he's the man.
He is the GM.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, if the Mets had hired Bloom, you can bet your bottom dollar that Carlos Beltran would never even seen the light of day as being a candidate to be their manager.
Oh, I disagree with that, and I'll tell you why. They hired him before that report came out in The Athletic. It was just a rumor. So I'm sure they talked to him, they asked him something, but nobody thought it was going to be any big deal at all because nobody knew about it. And then The Athletic came out. I believe they hired him on the 3rd, was it? And the report came out on the 12th. So he had already been hired and announced, Beltran, before that report came out from the initial report from the Atlantic, not the MLB investigation, the Atlantic report. So, they may have very well vetted him extensively, and I can't believe I'm sticking up for Brody Van Wagenen, but he could have vetted him extensively, and then this article came out, and again, if the MLB just kept it as including a group of players in Cora, then and didn't mention Beltran probably would still be manager of the Mets. So
yeah, no, I agree. That's true.
That is true. Yes.
All right. Well, we don't want to. We're beating a dead horse here now. Rojas is in. Beltran's out until the next round, and Marcus Stroman made some comments ripping the Astros for ruining the integrity of the game. I think somebody needs to, tell Marcus Stroman to don't tweet as much, Marcus. It's not, people are doing it. We don't know what other teams have cheated. Apparently, the Astros said there were at least 8 other teams that they knew of that were using the same kind of or different kinds of electoral technology to cheat at these games. It's a very confusing thing. Don't shoot your mouth off without knowing all the facts. That's
right.
all I'm saying.
Agreed. People in glass houses should not throw stones.
And I mean, MLB has got to look at this whole scandal thing and in a way, in a crazy way, they've created this themselves. They're the ones that put the replay rooms in and said, you know what, you got to shut that down or let everybody cheat. That's give everybody a monitor and let them try to figure out.
Got to get rid of those replay rules. It's ridiculous. It's taking too much time. It's supposed to correct egregious errors. Not minute errors, whatever. Use it for home runs and be done with it.
Yeah.
But now they have it in back of the dugout. You know what? Take it out of there, put it in the press box, and have one guy there to bring down to the dugout instead of guys going back and forth. Oh, let me see this replay.
Well, I'm the least technical of the 4 of us, and I will admit that instant replay does need some tweaking, but I don't want to eliminate it entirely because the idea is to get the call right. And as far as the technology during the game, I think Ron Darling, who we all respect a great deal, said that between the start and the finish of the game, Major League Baseball should just be a technology-free zone. What you do before and after the game, and things you might pick up during the game. Like, for example, on your last MetsMusings, Gary, you mentioned how Rusty Staub was tremendous at being able to steal signs, whether it's maybe the pitcher held his glove blower, if he was throwing a changeup as opposed to a fastball, or whatever kind of things they picked up without using technology. That stuff's been fine. That's been going on forever. But to use the technology is just no good. I would not be in favor of giving it to everybody. I'd rather, like Ronnie said, just take it out entirely while the game is going on, and then whatever before or after the game, before the game starts or after the game is over, it's fine.
But here's the thing. Look, I'm okay with that. But these guys strike out and they run right into the clubhouse to watch their time at bat to see, did they step here? Did they do this? What did he throw? And how come that's legal? That's not illegal.
That would have to go too. In Ronnie's analysis, that all would have to go. As long as it's during the game, that technology would have to be eliminated as well. At least I'm assuming that's what he meant.
But it's legal now. And yet what the Astros did is not legal. It's a very gray area now. I know they want to make it seem like it's black and white. It's not. It's very gray. Because there are people that think if a coach, like a Rusty Staub, like you said, figures out the signs and steals the signs, there are people that think that's cheating, that you shouldn't be able to do that even. So either you should do all or nothing then open it up to everybody. Excuse me. Football does it. They got coaches up in the air. They got cameras there. They all got the tablets on the bench. They're looking at stuff all the time. Either shut it down. You can't have the games playing in a clubhouse then, or nothing. But you got to get rid of the replay room. That's a big key. But they'll say, well, it's not just it's a video room for future events. My problem is before the game and after the game, you can watch all the video you want. You can try to steal their signs from the night before or the last time the particular pitcher pitched. But if you do it in real time, it's illegal. It makes no sense at this point.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Absolutely. No. You're right. I mean, I've been thinking about this. When you sometimes you use your phone and you can't get the internet or something, it's like kind of jammed. Why can't they jam the signal during the game? Like you said, make it technology free. That's one thing that they can do.
Well, I think that's what they're going to have to.
Yeah,
but here's the thing:
move the video up to the press box and have a coach or a player, or not player, a front office guy. Hey, look, check out this video. Check out this replay or something.
That's fine. That's fine for the replays. But don't forget, every team has their own video now, and they're videotaping the game from all angles, so the players can go in and watch the video to see what they did or see where they're playing or this, that, and the other thing.
I agree with you. It should be before or after, not during the game.
And I don't have no problem eliminating replay, but I still think if you could do it with the naked eye, keep the challenge option in the game, because if a manager or a first base coach on a safe out call at first base sees something that he thinks is a mistake, he should be able to have the manager challenge the call. The bottom line is to get the call right. If it has to be done without technologies to eliminate all this other garbage, so be it.
Well, no, but like Jeff said, move the guy. The only video of that should be going to the guy in the press box, and he's got to call down and tell them, okay, go ahead. And that's it.
It shouldn't be. I agree. It shouldn't be that the manager or somebody on the team gets a call from someone who's watching the play from above or whatever and calls down to them and says, you should challenge this.
If you could regulate that would be fine.
What?
If you could regulate that kind of technology,
Right.
Again, this is just to get the call right. That would be okay with me.
And why do the umpires have to go behind home plate? They're not looking at a monitor like in football. They're just getting on headsets calling somebody in New York. They could do that standing in place. Just give them an earpiece. Give them an earpiece. I mean, you can put a thing in your ear and talk on your cell phone. For Pete's sake, give them an Apple Watch. They can talk to them. I mean, there's got to be a better communication system than the way they got it set up.
And the funny thing is, it's really not that funny, but we see a lot of these replays. The umpires go underneath the stands. You don't see them for 3-4 minutes. They come out. They still get the call wrong.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is the technology, but a lot of it has to do with just plain old bad umpiring. Like I said before, the replay system definitely has to get tweaked.
Definitely.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, well, let's move on. Yoenis Cespedes working out.
And there are no wild boars in the area. They've eliminated all wild boars.
And no wild boars. Oh, and this report, Luis Rojas just went up a flight of stairs and did not pull a muscle like his brother Moises Alou. So that's good news.
All good on the injury front.
Yoenis Cespedes, you're talking about he's working out, and at the same time they're trying to move him and Jed Lowry. Yeah, there's two candidates for a trade that everybody in baseball wants.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think Yoenis has a lot to prove, and now he has the incentive to do it. That can only be a good thing, I think. I think he might have if he can get on the field, the Mets win when he's on the field.
Yep.
So if he can get on the field and stay there, they're going to have a good year.
Agreed.
Can he stay there? That's the big question. And if he's working out and he has the incentive to get another $20 million because of his contract situation, that'd be great.
Barry?
Anything from Yoenis Cespedes, in my opinion, will be a bonus this year. You got to remember, he's basically not played for 2 full seasons. He's 34 years old now, and it would be wonderful if we could get the Yoenis Cespedes from 2015 and 2016. But I really doubt, as motivated as he will be by being on the last year of a now very much watered down contract, hopefully he will have a great season for the Mets. But I have my doubts. Also, I have my doubts that he can really stay healthy. But it would sure be nice if we could get that player back. But the Mets have other issues that are much more significant. It's mostly that bullpen, because with all the talk, all the rhetoric, to me it really comes down to a couple of players, and mostly Edwin Diaz has to at least be close to his 2018 performance. Otherwise, the Mets will have to look at somebody else to be their closer. They were supposed to have improved their bullpen significantly last year. They've only added one piece this year, a pretty good piece, again, if he's healthy, in Dylan Betances. But it would be nice to have that old Cespedes back. I just don't think it's going to happen. But, again, a good bullpen should put the Mets on the precipice of the playoffs, if not in them.
Let me. I want to address what Barry said about Yoenis missing a couple of years due to injury, and that's all true. But I think he can come back, because in the past, players have missed seasons, more than 2 seasons. I know this is not the same thing, but they were, during World War II, you had Ted Williams missing several seasons.
Ooh,
Hank Greenberg, Bob Lemon, they missed major portions of their seasons, and they missed complete season and came back just as good. So I'm hoping, obviously, Yoenis come back from an injury. I hope he can have a good season.
And,
I'd
and
love
I
to
would
be wrong about this. Add Zach Wheeler to that as well. He came back after missing 2 full seasons and pitched very well. So,
And I'm going to make a prediction. I say Yoenis Cespedes, not only does he come back, but he gets comeback player of the year.
Ooh.
That's how good he's going to have a season.
Whoa, that'd be great for the Mets.
That's
that would
what
be
I
wonderful.
predict. You heard it here first on Mets Musings.
Just don't. If he has a great year, don't re-sign him to a contract at this point.
No, then he goes to the American League, to the to the American League team.
Okay. Mets are listed over under 86.5. What are your thoughts on that? Now let's keep in mind also that we're still in January. We're not even the spring training yet, and things could change. The lineup could change. They're apparently talking to the Pirates about Starling Marte. They could decide to pick up another relief pitcher. We don't know, but as it's the roster is constituted right now, and the pundits have listed them as 86.5. Is that a good number? Are you over? Are you under?
I say over. I think they're going to win a little more than that. I guess I've got I'm the optimistic person here, and I think they are going to win. I'm going to put them at 91 wins.
Ooh.
Wow. Jeff?
What's the over? What's the over number?
Well, it's 86.5.
86.5. So last year in 2019 they ended at 86-76, and that's with with Edwin Diaz having a terrible season, even though he had 25 saves. If he can have a decent season, they're going over 90. And
I'll go a little over because Washington's significantly weakened with the loss of Anthony Rendon, so they're going to be a little bit down this year. They're still going to be a good team. I'd say high 80s, and Diaz has to be better than he was last year. Otherwise, he won't be the closer. The Mets, at least on paper, do seem to have improved their bullpen, but of course their starting pitching has been weakened by the loss of Zach Wheeler. And another big key to this team is that Noah Syndergaard has to pitch like a co-ace or at least a number 2 starter instead of just talking like one.
And Betances is going to have a good year. I think he's going to have a good year. So, and I think between him and Diaz, that's going to really bolster the pen.
Well, again, Betances does have a great contract because if he does well, his player option I think is only $6 million, and we know he's just going to decline that. So he has incentive to do well. And I agree with Barry. Noah has to have a good year. He's got to really step up and be an ace-like, be Robin to DeGrom's Batman. I think the loss of Wheeler, Len was right. He knew he was going to get more than $18 million. I think Gary and I disagree with Len, but Len proved to be right.
Oh wow! Thank you.
I don't think he deserved what he got, especially when looking what Baumgartner got, and Baumgartner's a proven winner, a World Series champion, and only a few months older than Wheeler, but Wheeler somehow got the Phillies to pay him a lot of money. Wish him not so much luck in Philly. But are we really scared of Wheeler? Because there's going to be games. He's going to be out by the 4th inning. We know this. So I think the Phillies really overpaid for that. The Braves got Ozuna. They got Ozuna. So they're going to be pretty good. The loss of Rendon for Washington was great news for the Mets because he was a Mets killer. And Donaldson's also out of the division.
I was just going to say.
Another good news for the Mets.
But remember, the Phillies also got
Didi?
No, their manager.
Girardi.
Girardi is their manager. So
still got to execute on the field.
Yeah, well, they've got some good players. The Phillies have been stockpiling. They've got some good players.
I'm looking at Baseball Reference right now and looking up Noah Syndergaard's statistics, and they actually have a projection what he's going to do in 2020. They predict him at age 27 that he's going to go 10-7 with a 4.03 ERA.
That sucks.
That's a bad year.
I mean, where did they come up with this projection?
I don't know how they come up with that, but if he does that, that's not a good year.
And that's brought to you by the same idiots that go on MLB Now with Brian Kenny, the chief idiot, and give off all of these stupid, asinine data of warps and dupes and dopes and droops and drops and God knows what they're talking about on that show. And telling me that Lou Whitaker is a better ball player than a Joe Morgan or a Pete Rose. You know what? Come on. This is ridiculous, this analysis and all of this crap. You know what's slowing up a game? All of this analytics with these. They got to move the guys here. They got to move them there. They got to show you the launch velocity and that stupid strike box on the screen. I just want to see what the score is. Sometimes it's hard to find. It's hard to find a game with all that crap on the screen.
The strike box isn't exactly the same for Aaron Judge and Jose Altuve. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you that.
It's all right. Now that I'm good and riled up, let's get to the final topic: the Hall of Fame vote. How ecstatic! I was in extreme happiness that Derek Jeter got in. Not that he got in, but that he didn't get in unanimously. Yes. It pleased me to no end, even though somebody called me a schmuck on Facebook. Hey, that's okay. As I said to him, lighten up. It's all in good fun. This is the best thing. I mean, unfortunately, Rivera got in unanimously last year when he did not deserve to get unanimous vote. And, of course, Yankee fans all think that means he's the greatest player of all time.
Oh, God. Isn't that stupid?
He's better than Ruth. He's better than Williams. He's better than Cobb. He's better than them all. Yes.
The guy pitches one inning every other day, and he's the best of all time, best baseball player of all time.
And excuse me, he's a failed starter. He couldn't cut it as a starter, so they moved him into one inning of relief. Yes, was he good? But if you look back, he was very reliable, but there were a couple of big games there where he tossed up the cookies there. So, so we got Mr. Perfect going, or Mr. Almost Near Perfect going in this year, and probably the worst shortstop in the history of baseball to go into the Hall of Fame. Vastly overrated.
Gary.
And now
he was the second best shortstop on the Yankees. Give him that.
He wasn't the best shortstop on his own team.
All right.
Go ahead, Len.
I'm sorry. Gary, I listen, I don't agree with you. Okay?
That's fine.
Don't agree with you.
That makes for good conversation.
Yes, exactly. Let me give you my opinion. First of all, Hall of Fame voting. What I can't do anything about, I can't do anything about it now. But what was in the past and the people that voted because they were idiots and didn't vote in players because it was their first year and then they didn't feel they should go in on their first year, that was idiocy, okay? And the fact that then you had people that said, well, if they didn't go in, like with Seaver, okay? Seaver should have been unanimous. But so here's my feeling on the Hall of Fame. When you get your ballot, you can vote up to 10 people. Now, if the guy is a Hall of Famer, he's a Hall of Famer. It's not he's a fifth-year ballot Hall of Famer or a second year. If you don't have 10 players on your ballot that you think are better, and you think this guy is a Hall of Famer, he's a Hall of Famer. Not in his 10th year he's a Hall of Famer. His stats don't change. A Hall of Famer is a Hall of Famer. That's it. So, to me, if Derek Jeter is a Hall of Famer. I don't care if it's unanimous, not unanimous. I vote him in. I vote the guy. Larry Walker, to me, was a Hall of Famer in his first year of eligibility. He shouldn't have to wait for his 10th year. He is a Hall of Famer. What happened in the past was stupid. But to keep doing that, it's just stupid. If the guy is a Hall of Famer, that's it. So that's my opinion. So the fact that Jeter wasn't unanimous because one person didn't vote for him, why? Why didn't that one person vote for him?
Couple of reasons.
Really think now. As far as you're saying with Jeter, he's got the 6th most hits in baseball. Okay? Jeter, he was on 5 World Series winning teams, and he went to the World Series more than that.
I think.
Okay.
Let me just interrupt my friend here. I think Jeter also gets a big boost by being in New York. I mean, if he's in Cincinnati, no one's giving him the accolade.
Yes, but the thing is, he for 20 years. So he played under the pressure of New York for 20 years at shortstop, incredibly well for the Yankees. There's a lot of pressure there. So maybe if he's somewhere else, maybe he doesn't win all the World Series. But there's something about playing for 20 years in New York, playing consistent baseball. I think that he's not given enough credit for that.
But if he played in another city, would he be a Hall of Famer? Would his numbers stack up?
He would.
I don't think so. He would be, but not. He would not be a first-year Hall of Famer.
Let me throw my 2 cents in about Jeter because I'm pretty much on board with what Len said. If you're a Hall of Famer in your first year, you're a Hall of Famer in your 10th year. And in fact, Larry Walker in the mid-2010s was getting 10 to 15% of the vote. And then in 2020, he gets into the Hall of Fame. That's ridiculous. And it's going to happen again because of this new term, which the guy will probably go right with war and analytics. Strategic voting. And you can see this from a mile away. The couple of guys that are moving up the charts, the Scott Rowlands, the Omar Vizquels of the world, whose numbers are increasing, they're still pretty much new on the ballot. They're going to get in. It may take them a few years, but you can see the numbers trending upward for both of them. They're most likely going to get in. And in the next few years, the Hall of Fame candidates are not very good. I don't think one guy on next year's ballot that's never been on it before is getting in. I think the best player on the ballot next year is Torrey Hunter. Nice player, very good player, not a Hall of Famer. And I'll take it one step further with war because I did a little research on war earlier today. And last year I remember when we did our roundtable, I compared 2 players, one not in the Hall of Fame, Carlos Delgado, versus one player that got in on the first ballot, Willie Stargell. And their stats, offensively at least, are almost identical. So this year I changed it up a little bit, and I looked for 2 players with similar hitting stats, but very different wars. And those 2 players were Al Baines, who I think none of us feel is a Hall of Fame. Kind of like a Torrey Hunter, very good player, versus Al Kaline, who was clearly a first ballot Hall of Famer and a great player who made the Hall of Fame, like I said, on his first try. Well, their offensive statistics for their career are also almost identical. But like Gary, like you say often, the eye test tells you Kaline was clearly a Hall of Fame player. Baines wasn't. And when I looked at Kaline's war, it was almost double what Baines was. So the point is that war takes defense into account a great deal. And finally, my feeling on Derek Jeter, who now, like you said, will be thought of forever as Mr. Almost Perfect. Whether he gets 100% of the vote, whether he gets 99% of the vote, who cares? They're making so much out of nothing. He's a Hall of Famer, is well-deserved, maybe a little bit overrated defensively. And like you guys said, he was not the best shortstop on his own team when A-Rod got there, and he was the consummate team player when A-Rod got there. It should have been Jeter that had moved to third base instead of A-Rod. And finally, by Gary's standards, nobody would ever get 100% of the vote, because if Babe Ruth doesn't get 100%,
nobody gets it.
How can anybody?
Exactly. I think one guy should just put in an empty ballot every year. They should rotate so nobody gets in at 100%. But now, let me ask you a question. If, as you say, if you're a Hall of Famer, you go in, right? Then using that idea, why don't they just eliminate everybody after the first year? If you don't get in, you're out. You can't. No 10 years on a ballot. No.
Well, they reduced it from 15 to 10.
But no veterans committee. Let's not do any of that stuff. Let's just say if you're on the ballot 1 year when your first year, if you're not a Hall of Famer, you're not a Hall of Famer.
Huh?
I have no problem with that.
It's not a bad thing, because then you would get the guys who would say, "Oh, I've got to vote for him this year because there is no next year." So, because you've got people who are intentionally left off. What about the people that vote for someone last year, but now this year they don't vote for them?
Yeah, we've seen a couple of those.
Screwy too.
What the hell did they lose? Did they lose wins like Kurt Schilling?
No,
he's
but
on a ballot last year, but this year he's not a Hall of Famer. But last year he was. I mean, did he get less wins? Did he get less strikeouts? It doesn't make any sense. Once you vote for somebody for the Hall of Fame, that should be someone you think should be a Hall of Famer.
But if you add 5 players, 10 players every year to the ballot, right, and you only can vote for 10, then he might fall down on your list more.
Yes. And if that ballot has 10 people checked off, right, that's fine. But there were ballots that took people off that only had like 5 people checked off.
Well, that's
okay.
Yeah,
so what's that about?
No, I believe you fill out a whole ballot. If you do not, then you lose the right to vote. That's the way they should do it.
1-year rule. Who says that you have to vote for only 10 players? If you legitimately think, and I doubt this would ever happen, if you think there are 14 players on any ballot, just to throw a number out there, again, I doubt this would ever happen,
right,
but if you could find 14 players that you think legitimately are Hall of Fame worthy and deserve to get in on the first ballot, who's to say you can't vote for those 14 players?
I think they only count 10.
So I'm saying increase it. Don't put a limit on 10 if you're going to only allow them one year.
Right.
You're on.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay, that's fine. I don't care. They can vote for 20. I don't, if they want to.
I just don't like the fact that, they're going to try to find out who this one guy is, and they're going to shame him on social media. They're going to go after this guy, just like they went after the guy last year who said he wasn't going to vote for Mariano, and then goes after them, and he had to change his mind.
Well, his mistake was bragging about it in a column. That was his mistake.
So Gary could congratulate this gentleman or woman if whoever was the person that did not vote for Jeter. I thought that was the purpose of this, was so Gary could have that person on.
My hero. And by the way, if you look at all these analytics and stuff, Jeff Kent is right up there with 4 Hall of Famers at second base. His numbers are just as good, as if not better in some categories, than 4 Hall of Fame second basemen. And yet, what did he get? Like 20%, 30%?
Well, and here's where I'm going to disagree with my friend Gary here. And you're right, his statistics would you might say the Hall of Famer. But I don't know, when I saw him play, my eye test told me, nah, he's not a Hall of Famer. I went by the eye test, not the statistics.
And that's fair. But we know the reason why he's not getting in is because the writers don't like him. He was not a nice guy, and he's not getting in for that reason. And the hypocrisy on the writers' part, because you cannot on one point say, well, this guy got in, look at his stats, look at his WAR, look at this, that, and everything else, and then go to a guy like Jeff Kent that's got better numbers than 4 Hall of Fame second basemen and say he's not a Hall of Famer. I'm not voting for him. You know what I'm saying? You can't use the stats one way and then not use them the other way because you don't like the guy. And that takes away from the Hall of Fame. It just takes away. I'd rather see Jeff Kent in there. I think he was better than Scott Rowland. Scott Rowland, I even asked Rich Baxter, my co-host on the new Baseball Talk radio show, who saw a lot of Scott Rowland in Philadelphia when he was there, and he says he's not a Hall of Famer either. So, Kent had some good numbers, and offensively, and like you said, the according to your eye test, he wasn't a Hall of Famer, but his defense sucked, but his offense, he was as good, and he probably was as clutch as Jeter was. He just didn't. He played with a number of teams. He was not a nice guy, and he didn't win as many championships.
Right.
If any.
Right.
All right. Well,
but you know what? A lot of this. You're right. Jeter ended up on the Yankees, so maybe that helped him. Excuse me. But a lot of it is your situation. I mean, maybe the fact that Kent played with Barry Bonds helped his stats. I mean, that could be. And the fact that he didn't play on the Yankees hurt his chances. I don't know. But I agree with you, actually. I think Jeff Kent is a Hall of Famer as well, actually. I would have put him in. But
I just want to throw this in there, and Gary especially, you're going to love this, because I just looked up the respective WARs of both Scott Rowland and Jeff Kent, and Scott Rowland is about 15 points higher than Jeff Kent is. Like I said, WAR factors in defense a great deal, and we all saw Jeff Kent play, and his defense did leave something to be desired. Well, Scott Rowland's defense was
terrific,
above average.
Yeah,
maybe better than that. In my opinion, Jeff Kent should be getting a much higher percentage of the Hall of Fame vote than he does. And like you said, Gary, his offensive statistics for second baseman are as good as just about anyone that has ever played the game that's name wasn't Rogers Hornsby. I personally don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but he's kind of on the line. I don't think Scott Rowland is a Hall of Famer. If I had to pick between the two, and I had to put one of them in and not the other, I would probably put Jeff Kent in over Scott Rowland, but I don't think either one is. Again, very good players. Neither one of them, in my opinion, are worthy of the Hall of Fame. But for Jeff Kent to be getting, 20-25% of the vote is ridiculous.
Is Carlos Beltran a Hall of Famer?
You know what? Let me go first with this. He was always. I thought he was on the border. I think this is really going to hurt his chances. Yeah, I think this whole cheating scandal is really going to hurt his chances, just like the steroid guys. And this is just a bad look, and, especially this last year. That's what people remember. They're going to go, the Coast Ocean. Oh, wasn't he involved with the cheating? But it was no lock for him to get in the first place. And I think this is going to just be a big strike against him. Len?
I never looked at Carlos Beltran and thought Hall of Fame. So if you say eye test, I don't think so. He's in the Hall of Very Good, right on the border. See going either way, but you're absolutely right. This cheating scandal is definitely going to hurt. Now, in 5 years when he's eligible, or now it'll be 4 years, or whatever it is. No, 2 or 3 years. 2 or 3 years. Yeah, so, and then he's going to be on the ballot for 10 years. Maybe another scandal comes up that wipes this one away. I don't know, but,
right.
But you're right. This is not going to help.
If he goes in,
right,
I hope it's not with a Met cap now, because you don't want that saying, And he cheated with the Astros. Let him have the Astros hat on.
He'll probably go capless. He probably won't go in with a cap.
Right.
But because he's played on so many teams. But yeah, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. But he's close.
Said at one
close.
time that he would go in as a Met. I don't know how true that is.
He's right on the line. But if he got in, I would not go crazy over it. But if he was kept out, which would most likely be because of this scandal, I would have no problem with that either. Like Mike Mussina last year got in. I had no problem with that either. I clearly thought he was a borderline choice.
As far as him going in as a Met, this is what's going to happen. If he gets in the Hall of Fame, he'll call the Yankees and he'll offer them. He'll say, "Look, the Mets say I could go in with their hat, but I really want to go in as a Yankee. So if you want me to, I'll go in as a Yankee." and for those who remember history, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Now, let me ask the question. Doesn't the Hall of Fame have a say in this? And if they say there's too much history, negative history, whatever, he played for so many teams, and can they rule that a player can go in and not have a hat on?
Yes,
can they do that?
Yeah, they can. They take the wishes, from what I understand, they take the wishes of the player as much as they can. If they're adamant, then they'll go with the player. But they can either overrule the player or they can at least work on him. That's why Carter went in as an expo, I think. And I think because his years with the Mets, it wasn't as long as the Mets as it was with the Montreal. And I think they wanted somebody from the expos in the Hall of Fame. But I do believe that they can make the final decision if a guy's played with a lot of teams and he says, "Oh, I don't really, really identify with any one particular team," they can make the decision, and it probably goes by length of service. So
it's the Hall of Fame has the ultimate decision. They'll take the players, their wishes into consideration, but it happened because Wade Boggs played 2 years in Tampa and wanted to go in as a Tampa Bay Ray. They were going to pay him. So the Baseball Hall of Fame took that away from the players. Look, you mentioned Gary Carter. He played, 5 seasons for the Mets?
Yeah.
Reggie Jackson played 5 seasons for the Yankees, and he went in as a Yankee. And he played more seasons, in Oakland.
But he went
in New York because he wanted to be a New York Yankee.
And he had the whole World Series, the 4 home runs, and he had some cachet as a Yankee. And let's face it, these guys, the Yankees, get an advantage. I'm sorry. Yankee fans aren't going to like that, but they're probably not listening to the show anyway. But the Yankee fans get an advantage. That's why Jeter got in this year with such a high vote. I can almost assure you that if he played in another town, he would not be a first-year Hall of Famer. I just don't. Because it was every October, and if he played for a bad Yankee team, he probably, he might have gotten in, but he may not have gotten in the first year. It's because he was a Yankee and he was in the right place at the right time for all that string of championships, and he was right in the middle of everything, and he was the shortstop.
He was drafted 5th. That means 4 of the teams could have grabbed him, and who knows how well history would have changed now. He could have obviously signed with the Yankees as a free agent later on, but being a Yankee definitely had cachet, and being at the right, like you said, right place, right time. Mm-hmm. He would have been in the Hall of Fame. Maybe not with 99.7, but he might have gotten the first time, but it would not have been at such a high vote percentage.
So Yankee fans, he's in. That's all. Just take that. Don't worry about See, we're too hung up on these damn stats again. I mean, years ago, you really, is he in? Yeah, he's in. We didn't care how much percentage points somebody got. It's just that you didn't even know who voted for who. But now in this day and age, everybody's gonna know who voted, what number, who's he putting in. I don't really care. Just tell me who got in and who didn't get in. Now I have a question for you guys. MLB Network always has a camera on the guys that get the phone call for the Hall of Fame. That they have to know ahead of time. I don't care. Brian Kenny could stand there and say, "Well, I don't even know what they're going to pick, so let's open the envelope." They gotta know, because do they have like 20 cameras at everybody that could go in? I mean, was there?
Right?
Was there a camera guy in Kurt Schilling's house, and when he don't get a call, the guy go, "Oh, sorry." You know what I
mean? Sorry, we're leaving.
I mean,
see
come
you next
on.
Year.
They have to know ahead of time. So I mean, if you watch that night and they go to the guys that they got the cameras on, you go, "Well, I guess those two guys are getting in," you know.
Yeah, Larry Walker was not a shoo-in, that's for sure.
Right.
Now, Larry Walker was a very good. I think he's a Hall of Famer. He was a good ball player, great defense. He was terrific in Montreal. You used to hate it. He was dominating. You hated to see him come up in the game. Even more so when he went to Colorado. But he was dominating before he went to Colorado. And, you know, it's a shame that they get, guys are getting, we talk about the PEDs and everything. Guys that play in Colorado are getting the same kind of bad shift there, because they're saying, "Oh, because of the air and everything," and it's hurting the guys like a Todd Helton. No, I think he was injured too much. I don't see him as a Hall of Famer. And the same thing. That's why I don't see Roland, because to me, Roland was injured a lot. I seem to recall, and
Excellent point.
I think that has to be considered in, but there's no stat for that, so Brian Kenny couldn't tell you anything about it. But I don't know. That's just that's my thought on it. And any closing thoughts by anyone?
Well, yeah. Gary, I have a question for you.
Let me throw this out here, Gary.
Wait, Barry, can I just ask Gary a quick question? Because I want to, Barry. I'm Gary.
Yes.
I want to know what hotel you made your reservations at for this summer's Hall of Fame induction ceremony in Cooperstown.
I have not.
I want to know where you're staying.
I am not. First off, I would not go. I love Cooperstown. It's a wonderful town. I would not go in the summertime. It's crazy as all hell. The best time to go, I recommend anybody, is like March or April. Or November or something like that. In the off season, you get the Hall of Fame practically to yourself, and you can take the time. If you go on that, especially that weekend, it is a madhouse. And you guys were up there in the off season, and you had practically the Hall of Fame to yourself, right?
Oh, yeah, we ran the place.
Yeah, but Gary, then you're not going to see Jeter get inducted.
I'm not going to.
I know how much you want to see that.
I'm not even going to watch it on TV.
If Gary was to go up there, the answer to your question would be wherever Brian Kenny is staying, and that they would probably be roommates.
No, I couldn't understand a word he said. So. All right.
Is it fair to say, Gary, that you're not going to ever have Brian Kenny as a guest on MetsMusings?
No. All right, Barry, what did you want to chime in with?
I just want to throw some history at you guys, because in my, and you as well, retirement days, I have more free time than I used to. And since we're starting a new decade, I just thought it'd be kind of interesting to go back to the last 2 decades and basically come up with an opinion that most of the teams in the major leagues are doomed before the beginning of the 2020 season for the rest of the decade. Because if you go by the last 10 years and the 10 years before that, more than half the teams in both those decades didn't make it to, didn't even make it to, let alone win the World Series in the 2000s. only 14 of the 30 Major League teams got to the World Series. And in the 2010s, only 12 out of the 30 teams got there. And the Mets are actually one of only 6 teams to make the World Series in both decades. Unfortunately, they didn't win either of those World Series, but they are one of only 6 teams to have gotten there in both decades. The other 5 teams being the Cardinals, the Giants, the Red Sox, the cheating Astros, and the Tigers, who, like the Mets, were the other team to not win either World Series that they participated in. So I guess my point is, being a fan of a major sports team, the odds are pretty much against you from the start. And as we start this new decade, we can only hope that the Mets at least get to one or more World Series in this decade and actually win it this time.
Let's hope so. Guys, any closing thoughts?
Leonard?
Jeff, Len?
Okay, Jeff, hey, I just given me the floor. Yeah, Gary, I just want to say I wish you well with your new edition of your podcast with Rich Baxter.
Thank
Wish
you.
you well with that. I did hear your first episode. It was very good.
Thank you.
And thank you for having us on. It's always a pleasure. And just let's go Mets. And thank you.
I'm just going to say, when anybody goes up to Cooperstown after the induction ceremony and you do go to the gallery of all the plaques, you will see Derek Jeter's plaque right next to Mariano Rivera, just to you know that's been announced.
Well, that's good. So if you want to urinate on it, it's easier. They're both together.
But again, I want to reflect what my cohort here, Len, says. Thank you for having us on. Always a pleasure. And, keep the faith, stay optimistic.
And hopefully your listeners will listen to Baseball and Barbecue as well.
And Gary, let me also thank you for having me on this roundtable. It's always fun to do it with you and with Len and with Jeff. I had a blast, as always. And yes, your show with Rich Baxter is excellent. I did listen to it earlier today. And I will be at the Fan Fest in a couple of days. I'll let you know how it goes. And I will also make another trip to spring training. It will be very, very interesting to see if Brody is as accessible this spring training as he was last year. It will be very interesting to find out, now that he has a track record, to see if he is open and as accessible as he was in the past. So, like you say, and as I often say, I am cautiously optimistic, but I will try to be a little more optimistic. Let's see how the beginning of the season goes. The Mets' schedule for the first 3.5 weeks is very tough. There's not a bad team on it, but we can only hope that the Mets do well and have a great season. So on that note, Gary, take it away.
Okay. And the irony of this whole situation is they could have avoided all of this by not firing Mickey Callaway. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank my guests, Barry Newman and Jeff and Len from Baseball and Barbecue. Go check it out. They've got a new episode probably coming out in a week or so. But they've got some great episodes out now. The last one was with an author wrote a book about Lou Gehrig's last days. Very interesting. Go check that out, Baseball and BBQ. And I want to thank you all for listening. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, CastBox, wherever you listen to podcasts. Hit the subscribe button. That helps me grow the show and expand to new listeners. And until next time, remember, keep the faith, stay optimistic, and let's go
Mets!
I'll see you next time in another edition of Mets Musings.